Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Monica.
And I'm Andrea. And welcome to episode 10 of season 2, called The Red Angel. Okay, so guys, this episode, I feel like Star Trek is going back to how I love it. So I'm really excited because this episode is all about new information, shocking reveals, and a lot of sass coming from Spock, talking about you, honey. So let's get right into it. Monica, what was your initial reaction?
Oh, this is crazy. I felt like this episode was an emotional roller coaster ride.
Yes.
And I learned a lot because I had no idea that Section 31 knew about the Red Angel this whole time. Like, they hold their cards close to their chests and we're learning more. Not going to give out more spoilers, but what did you think about this?
I loved this episode. Every single thing that was shown on the screen, I loved. I even did cry in the very beginning, but I loved every aspect of this episode. But Spock was the winner of this episode if there had to be one. I loved him.
So for those that are listening and can't see Andrea right now, she is blushing. She's glowing. I think there is a big big crush. So
yes,
that's what
I am a simp for Spock.
Great. He has some really good lines in here.
He
Excellent
does.
writing.
He does. And we're definitely going to get into it. I'm going to stop blushing when I think of it. So we have to start this episode, or this episode starts on sort of a somber mood. We are at the funeral of Ariam. With the funeral, I know last couple episodes we had a question, or at least I know last episode we had the question, or I had the question regarding like how was she able to die if she was like a real cybernetic robot? What's going on? And so this episode really does answer that for us, because when we see them like deleting her memories and we see the scan of her body, it does look like a lot of her body was still almost human. We see like a brain, so it could have been her same brain, but it was still augmented. Or being what we saw was cybernetic. Her insides were almost partly still human, it seemed. And then we had everyone who sort of shares their memories of Ariam. And I didn't come to this episode to cry. But what did you think about that opening scene about the funeral?
Definitely. There were a few other characters that had passed away, and I don't remember scenes like this.
Yeah. Unless, that goes to show how important Ariam was, and also the respect that they had for her, because Pike admits that like she gave her life to protect everyone else. Because she could have just kept going on and like not cared and saved herself. But we see that she put the crew above her own life. And I'm not sure a lot of people would have chosen that avenue. They would have been like, please help me, stop me. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't even think Ash was like, kill me. Remember that. Guys, people listening, if I'm incorrect, please let us know. But I don't remember him saying that. And this isn't like a dig at him in that way. It's more of he's the only person I can see who's going through the same, who sort of went through the same thing as right. Being like an enemy within and not realizing into the very last moment, like Ariam, he didn't choose death. He chose his life over other people, which take it as you will, people. Take it as you will when it comes to my love-hate for Ash.
Yeah. Well, this also reminds me of like when Giorgio died, the series just kept moving, but I don't remember a memorial service. And I hope there was a big memorial service for her as a captain and all of her journeys, and also just to help with the crew to have closure. That was a biggie. But Ariam's name is, if you break it down, is like Air I Am, and they shot her out into space.
Oh, that's sweet.
So then I was thinking she's just gonna float out there.
So that's how they always do funerals. Because they can't keep the dead body aboard, and so like they always like shoot them out in space into like a casket. Okay, so it's, instead of crewmates, and then the body just resides out there for someone else to pick. That's just a lot of, I guess, caskets out there. Yeah.
Oh.
Makes the Klingons not so crazy to keep it around the ship versus just floating in space, right?
I was just thinking that.
Because least you can. I mean, I guess also it depends on what each person's directive could be. Because like we said, like Hugh could have, Paul could have sent Hugh's stuff back to his parents, and who's to say the body didn't go back to his parents to be buried? Like, so it could be each person has a directive, and if Ariam is the only person in her family left, she might just want to be shot out into space, because they did wipe her mind, so that way nothing of her remembers. So nothing of her is remembered. So just in case anyone does find her, they can't use that secret knowledge to rehack. But
got it. Because that's another thing I was thinking about. Okay, so now she's out there, but they showed us an earlier scene in which there was a data purge. So hopefully no one can gather that data back to then have access to control. Hopefully there's a clean wipe of that hard drive.
Part of me, I guess this is also the fact that I guess she had more human features than I anticipated. Couldn't they have just done a hard reset? In my mind, I was like, they're going to just do a hard reset and like wipe her. And the only memory she's going to keep is her husband. And then like wipe her. And then like restart her. I thought that's what they were going to do. But it's like, oh, I guess she has too many human things that really did allow her to die. Neither here nor there.
Yeah, or just keep her body for science. Like keep her cybernetic state for research. But I guess not. Anyway.
No, don't do that to her.
Got it.
Okay, so then episode goes on, and we see that everyone, that the main crew, the Fab Five, the fabulous people, they're all meeting to talk about what is possible, what is still going on right now, what the whole Red Angel, what's going on with control. And Tilly uncovers the words Project Dalius, and that's when Michael's like, oh, that's what she tried to tell me before she died. And Tilly says like the signature is Michael. And the only thing I can think of is when like she says that, it's like Michael's face is like, what? Like, why is it always her? Like, like I understand she's very important to the show, but don't make it that like no storyline could ever function without her, because I just don't want that to happen to what happens to a lot of main characters, where they're written in a way where only the storyline can survive with them. And then when they're not in there, you realize you still like the show just as much, or you like it even better.
But once we find out that could be a connection between the Red Angel and Michael, there's an analysis of Michael to learn more, and Hugh connected that. And that was actually one of my favorite scenes. I don't know about you, but I thought that there was a really good dialogue between from Spock and his emotions about Michael. And then
this is where the sass comes
from
in.
The other members of the crew. Sorry.
No. I was like, this is where the sass comes in. Keep going. This is where Spock's sassiness comes in, and you see their sibling relationship. Because Spock was like, oh, that sounds like Michael. Basically, he's just saying it sounds like her for always trying to take control of something that she cannot control.
Yeah.
And it was such a way a brother would talk about his sister that I loved it. And so then we also see a little bit more interactions with other characters. We see Hugh and Tilly and Paul working, and Giorgio's there. Oh, sorry. I did want to state, did you notice the look on Giorgio's face when she realized it was Michael was connected to or was the Red Angel? It looked like actual fear and like actual like upset and hurt. And the fact that they cut to her face means like there's something, like you never know with Giorgio what she's feeling. Right. But the fact that she showed like either she was upset or like afraid makes me wonder, does she know more than is going on and she was sort of hoping it wasn't Michael, or she needs it not to be Michael so she can continue with her plan?
Right.
Like, did you catch that look?
Yes, I did. And I want to back up a minute, because when Leland and Giorgio boarded the ship, I was thinking, no, that's the last. We don't need Section 31 right now. They created this mess. No. Mm-hmm. And how do you know if like they're going to ruin all of this, or if they have incorrect information from control? I just thought, oh, can just the Discovery crew and Cromwell solve this? This Red Angel, like, this is the worst. But I just wanted to mention that I was hoping that they were not be engaged in this process.
Yes, definitely. I'm so glad you brought that up. I forgot that part. That Section 31 created the initial Red Angel. Because the Klingons were trying to create their own version of time travel. So Section 31 was trying to do it instead. And this is all going to make sense for later in the episode. But it's very interesting because I know I think you mentioned it in like your initial reaction, that the Red Angel is a product of Starfleet, technically. Like we don't know who's controlling it at this moment,
right? But
it was started by Starfleet.
Right.
In response to the Klingons trying to do it. And I was not really expecting that.
Right, because Cromwell was on like one of the Section 31 bridges talking to Leland about the Red Angel. Cromwell like interrogated Spock about the Red Angel. But this whole time, Starfleet via Section 31 created this thing that they're trying to research.
And it's like, how Admiral Cromwell, how out of the loop does she now feel that she was interrogating Leland about it and not knowing that Leland created it?
Right.
And this has been going on for at least 20 years.
Right. Because
they said the Klingons were trying to do it 20 years ago. So Leland has been on this project for how long? And she had and I know she was an admiral for 20 years, but like, how out of the loop is she with Section 31, where even though she is an admiral, is really a name only because you had no power over them. Like, you thought you did, but you didn't. Right. Because you didn't know what they were doing.
Right. That's the problem with these underground secret societies or secret agencies with like one hand's not talking to the other. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this could have been solved earlier. And poor Michael's like, what? I need to know more about this. I'm like out of the loop. Someone tell me what's going on. Like, yes. I'm the last to know. So I was feeling for her there.
Yes, I was definitely feeling for her there. But at the same time, well, we'll get into it a little bit later. We'll get into this a little bit later. But so now let's cut back to Tilly and Paul and Giorgio are working on a plan to trap the Red Angel. And it's going pretty well. They're talking. Paul has a whole explanation that I'm not going to get into because those science words are beyond me. But if you watch the episodes, you know the plan. Basically, they're going to just create a like little web to trap it in and like have a covering on top of it, so that the Red Angel can escape and they can figure out what's really going on. We also see Hugh comes in, and if you going back to the funeral of Ariam, I didn't mention it there because I wanted to save it for this part. When Paul was speaking about how he felt about Ariam and how Ariam had helped him in certain ways, the way the angle of the shot is showed Hugh sort of looking at Paul during that time. And I was like, oh, Paul, Paul, your man still wants you. He's still attracted to you. Even though he don't know what's going on right now, he's still attracted to you. And then Hugh comes in looking delicious. Like they did that on purpose. And I have to say, this was my favorite part of Terry and Giorgio. That scene was so amazing in so many ways. Giorgio, what are you doing? Because like right before Hugh walks in, Giorgio gives Paul a compliment and is like, hey, you're smarter than the Paul I knew, but you're more neurotic. You should try medication. And then Hugh walks in and she can see how uncomfortable it is for Paul. And then Tilly's trying to like cut the tension by just trying to talk to him. Like, oh no, it's fine. It's great that you're here. And Giorgio's like, Red, who taught you? Stop this. You don't cut this off. You don't cut the tension. And like, it's like she tells her to literally stop talking because she's liking the tension that's happening between Paul and Hugh. And then she like basically almost comes on to Paul in a scientific manner to where Hugh has to step in and say, he's gay, right? And Giorgio was like, not in my universe, he wasn't. He was pansexual and we had a lot of fun. And then looks at Hugh and's like, and so did we. and she calls him Poppy. Leaves, and then Tilly like takes a deep breath and is like, what just happened?
Yes.
I might have watched that scene like 3 times because I just could not believe with my own eyes what was going on. Like it was,
the timing was perfect.
She legit just told them she has slept with both of them in the other universe.
Yes.
And she, like, even though she never said it, she basically says, I want it to happen again.
Well, we know, and she admitted to being a freak last season. No, last season. Yeah, it was last on Quiznos when she was being entertained. Let's just say that and getting her groove on. So she knows what she likes, and she's not afraid to talk about her sexuality. And but I thought Tilly was so sweet, and I've had those moments where things happen in a room, and then after that person leaves, you're like, "What just happened?" So I thought that was perfect timing. It was right on. It broke.
Of all things, I thought she was going to like basically make fun of the tension, but not basically like put herself in the middle of it. I don't know. This episode, I feel like there was a more friendlier side of Georgia, and I don't know if she was trying to fix their relationship, because basically with her coming on to Paul, she made Hugh jealous.
Yes.
And then with her going on to Hugh, she made Paul jealous, because they both were like, no, we're both just gay. Like, no, there's nothing else going on. Like, it's just us. And making them both sort of like, well, at least on Hugh's side, because we know Paul still wants Hugh. At least on Hugh's side, like, no, that's my man. Back off.
The character Joe is so fascinating to me. I appreciate and value the prime Giorgio, but this was off the hook. And I think she should get her own spinoff. I would have enjoyed watching that. Not quite sure what rating it would get, but that would be a huge and be hot and spicy. I can imagine that. Woo.
Oh my gosh. No, it's like that. I think that's a good, actually, no, there's one other thing I want to speak about before we go into break. We see that Leland and Giorgio are having a conversation. And this sort of answers the question that Giorgio put in our minds a couple episodes ago about Leland being responsible for Michael's parents' death. And now we understand how he is responsible, because he admits to her that her parents were Section 31. That they were working for him. And it was really painful to watch Michael try and rationalize what he was saying. Like, no, you're wrong, because they weren't Section 31. My father was a xenologist, however you say that word. My mom was something else. But like, it also goes to show when you're Section 31, you have cover stories of what you really are. So that way no one really looks into your record. You can't say you're Section 31 when you're in Section 31 stationed somewhere else. And that her parents were integral parts of building the Red Angel. And that he was looking for the time stone or a time gem, time crystal that would power the suit, all because of him, that her parents were found by the Klingons and killed. And so like to see it click in her mind that no, we were still there because I wanted to watch a supernova explode. And he's like, no, they were there because of me. And how it was really interesting to see him admit truthfully how sorry he felt. He was like, I was young and ambitious. I thought like, when you're like, he thought he could control the situation more than he could have. But one thing I didn't understand, maybe you can explain it. Maybe you caught it and I didn't. So the way he was explaining it, they were still on that site because he ordered them to be there. That's what he was stating. They didn't stay because she requested. They stayed because he ordered them to be there, and that's what the Klingons tracked, because they had the time crystal, or the Klingons thought they had the time crystal. He never came out and said that her parents had it, just that the Klingons tracked it back to her parents. And that's how her parents died, because he had a bad plan that failed, that caused her parents' death. And we see Michael lash out in anger. Like, one, that was for my mom. 2, that was for my dad. And like she leaves, but to see her, and it goes back to what Spock sort of said to her when they were in Talos, that your parents' death was not your fault. Like, what were you going to do? You were locked in a closet. And also, you were 10 years old. You didn't plan to stay on that planet so your parents would die. You never intended that. That's not your fault. And now to see that she's been carrying all this guilt for all these years, and it was never her fault. They were going to be there no matter what.
Yeah. Well, it's both Spock and Michael have a hard time release issues from the past and moving on. They seem to hold all of these issues tight forever, for eternity. I think also Michael realized that maybe her parents were lying to her or manipulating it. And so like some of her visions of her parents, her memories may not have been like 100%. And she has to rethink a lot of things that she thought she knew about her parents because the story has changed. And all of a sudden, like in an instant, like, so she's not getting this information gradually, like in an instant, like, the whole backstory has changed. And I guess there's more heightened anxiety about this and how she's connected to all of this and all of the other issues connected to this Red Angel from previous episodes.
Like she even goes to ask him, well, why did they never tell me? And he's like, because it was classified. They couldn't tell you. And it's her trying to rationalize the truth with what she believed as the truth. You can see it's like breaking her head. Like it is not something that she is doing well with. Always carry that around, and then to find out that you never needed to be carrying it around, regardless of the fact that she never needed to be carrying it around. But to actually really realize it was never your fault to begin with, and you allowed yourself to live like this. Like, it's a lot to come to terms with. And so it's like, now you're going to punish yourself for believing that lie for so long. It's, I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah. But no matter if we look thinking back to Hugh and Hugh physically hitting Ash with letting out his frustration about like his own murder.
Loved it.
That one scene, or Spock hitting the chess table, showing his human side and emotion, and now like Michael showing her human side and emotion, and it's all coming out really with this, and she doesn't know how to control it. I think it's a big character arc for her, or that we're seeing of her.
Yeah.
This is
would like to see how she will now act without this weight she's always been carrying it around. Like once she's allowed herself to let it go, a sense.
Right, because she put her parents on a really high pedestal, and that pedestal just got knocked down.
And the thing is, you're right, she probably did knock the pedestal down, but I don't know if she should. Because
she was just criticizing Ash for being part of Section 31.
And no. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying she can't. I think how I'm trying to phrase it is she can't really fault them for doing their job, because in her mind she romanticized something that they didn't live up to. Mm-hmm. So I definitely believe you're right that they're probably going to fall off a pedestal in her mind. My question is, do they deserve that? Because they weren't allowed to tell her. She was 10. Who's going to tell a 10-year-old that they're doing classified work? And in their mind, they're letting their daughter believe that they stayed on that site for her. And so that and like, if they never died, Michael would have been like, my parents loved me so much that they allowed us to stay for the supernova, versus, and like, if everything had worked out, that would have been a happy memory for her, that her parents allowed her to like put everything else on hold for her. And she never knew that it was never for her.
We'll find out for sure.
We'll find out. So guys, a lot has happened in that first half of this episode. And now we need to discuss everything else that happened in the second half and the bombshell that we were given at the end. So first, let's start off with Hugh. So he goes to talk to Admiral Cornwell, and for the pure fact that she used to be a therapist, and he needs to talk to her about what's going on. And so remember, this is sort of happening after the whole tete-a-tete with Georgiou and Paul and Hugh. And I have to say, throughout this scene, I gathered a huge amount of respect for Hugh, and what he's doing and not doing with Paul. I respect him so much because he admits, I don't know, because Admiral Cornwell makes a point to say he knew you best, and Hugh catches the fact that she did past tense, and she was like, well, you're new, so he knew the old you. And Hugh admits he doesn't even really know himself. And so I respect him for putting some distance between himself and Paul to really understand what he wants, so that way he doesn't string Paul along while he's trying to figure it out. So I respect him for moving out of their quarters because he needs that distance to come to terms. And I respect him for not having like a friends with benefits situation with Paul. I respect that he's trying to keep that distance so that way, if they do get back together, because God knows I want those two back together. I love them together. That they're back together because one, Paul sees him as a new person and not a picking up where we left off, but almost starting fresh. And Hugh loves Paul because he loves him, because like Hugh himself loves him, and not because the past version of him loved him. And so I think for the relationship to truly work, Hugh needs this time to be different and come to terms with that. And Paul also needs this time to see him as someone new, because that's what he is. So I definitely really did love that scene, and it made me respect Hugh a lot more. What did you think of that scene?
I'm thankful that now I'm able to see a side of Cromwell that I like. Okay. There's been many other decisions that she's made, whether it was the genocide for the Klingons and like making Georgiou the captain of Discovery. Like she's made some decisions. I'm like, really? Like, even setting aside the Lorca thing. But this one like was nice and like wholesome because it seemed like it was a spontaneous stop by Hugh to talk to the Admiral, and she welcomed him in and gestured for him to sit down, and it seemed like a casual counseling. And I think that was definitely needed. There's a few other folks on the ship that also needs counseling that she out Cromwell. It's just to talk things out. I don't know, like 4 or 5 people come to mind for me. But that was nice. And there was also like an interesting way of getting some other backstory about what was going on. So yeah, so I liked that scene a lot. And it was nice to see like Hugh in that nice
they need him. I need him back in Starfleet uniform right now, because this ain't fair. It's not, you cannot dress him like that and make him off the market. Like, you can't. It's not fair.
I don't know, you might be pansexual though.
Like, I respect that actor, that man, too much, but y'all know what y'all doing putting him in that suit. Like, y'all knew what y'all were doing. We see this other scene with Spock and Michael. And we definitely see some more scenes of Spock being sassy, and I love it. But it cuts to Michael is like in a lone training room, and she's like punching the crap out of this dummy. And Spock comes in, and like, I guess he is now aware of what Michael is aware of, that Michael's parents' death was because of Section 31, not because of anything Michael did, which again it was never her fault to begin with. But Spock sort of stands up for his like sister in a way, like emotionally, in the way that he can. But he also like he also accepts her apology, which I think she needed. Yeah. And I think in Spock's mind, he didn't need to say, I accept your apology, because it's like in his mind, because he says you were a child, you acted as with the logic of a child. And so we see that little sibling dynamic. And then we also hear Spock say, though I do wish I was in there when you punched him. That would have been satisfying to see. And it's just like, they talk. I like that they have. I'm seeing now that their sibling relationship and the way that they talk to each other, and I'm liking to see that it's sort of acting out like a true sibling relationship, because that feels like something I would say to my brother, or they would say something to me, if like I had hit someone who deserved it, and it's like I wish I would have saw that. That would have been. I mean, yeah. You could next time wait till I can see it. Like. So it was definitely nice to see that nice emotional sibling lovey-dovey scene, whatever. Spock realizes how they can trap the Red Angel in that scene as well. And he admits that he explains it to her that why the Red Angel is always saving Michael is because, or like the reason the Red Angels has appeared out of sequence is because it's always saving Michael. Mm-hmm. And then she goes to the captain and sort of arranges it like it's her idea. I was like, it was not your idea. Spock figured this out. It's like, we shouldn't have been asking this. We should have been asking, why was it coming? And it was always saving my life. First of all, Spock told you that. Give Spock his due, girl. Stop stealing your little brother's commendations. That was his idea, not yours. But neither here nor there. And they make the plan at that point to use Michael as bait for the Red Angel, which I think is the dumbest decision in the world. Basically suffocate Michael to death. And it's her plan. And it's very barbaric, and it's very awful, and it's very horrible. And she's very scared because there's a chance that she could actually die. And this goes into your part, that she is so afraid she's not going to find love. And I'll let you talk about this part because I gagged during it.
So I do want to go back a little bit because Michael and Ash bumped into each other earlier. Maybe they spoke earlier, and she was very upset at him for choosing Section 31, and it's unethical, and they make so many bad decisions. But later on, she decides she wants to say goodbye to him. And she embraces him and she kisses him, sort of like a Gone with the Wind moment, which for me was not really believable, but you know, a lot of decisions that Michael makes, I wouldn't really necessarily make. And it goes back to Spock, like sometimes she's overly dramatic, and this is one of those cases. But the man tried to kill her a few months ago. Like now she's still in love with him, still connected, and it was just interesting. Michael's a consistent roller coaster ride, and her human
of
side.
Dumb emotional decisions.
Yes, exactly. I just wanted to bring this up, that like she's now starting to think about her decision of wanting to sacrifice her own life to set this mousetrap. And so now she's a little scared. At this point, she's scared. And she's like, oh, who do I want to see and embrace now? Ash, the man who killed me, who wanted to kill me. So, yeah.
The man that has been willingly sleeping with his torturer. The man who willingly slept with his torturer.
The man who also works with the same agency that her parents used to work with, that she was so like distraught about. I used to be a huge, I think season 1, yes, I was a huge Ash and like Michael fan. I was all for it. And now, Michael, if you do not step away from that man and keep a 10-foot pole between you and that man, because nothing good will come of this relationship. Nothing good will come of this relationship. I cannot see a single good thing coming from this relationship. His life is way too complicated in ways that she'll never understand. He has a Klingon kid that she knows nothing about, that he knows that he'll never tell her about. There's always going to be, part of him is in love with Laurel, and like he openly admits, like when he was with her, like there was a part, like no, there's too much drama in that life. Walk away. Right. But this is a case of going back to the ex, right? So you should not do that. But
no one should ever go back to your ex. There's a reason they're an ex.
Move on. Instead, she should have went for a counseling visit with Cromwell to share her feelings. But
Or, hung out with the brother that she hasn't spoken to in generations. Yeah. Called your parents. Called Sarah. Called Amanda. Hung out with Tilly.
Yes.
I'm over it. I want Michael to find love. I do, but I don't want it to be messy. And I don't want it to be drama filled. And I firmly believe at this point, the only thing with Ash could ever be, it will always be he tried to kill her. Like, that's not you can't really come back from that. Like, regardless of the fact that it's almost the same thing with Hugh. I don't know if they ever make an episode with Hugh and Ash being best friends, I'm going to definitely just throw my remote at the TV, because there's some things you just sort of can't come back from.
Right.
And I'm not saying like you can't be redeemed from it, but like, if someone tried to kill me, I'm not going to want to kiss them again, regardless of the fact that they were brainwashed at the time. Tell me how you really feel, Andrea. Okay, so the episode goes on, and they are now down on this planet in like this little warehouse, and they're setting up the trap. I guess all the important people down there. We see Paul. We see the new lieutenant that comes on to takes Ariam's place. And I'm happy to say that she did not say, I'm happy to be here, or happy to be here. She said, let's get to work, or basically something like that, because she understands that she doesn't have this position because someone got promoted. She has this position because someone died. So I like that they were sort of respectful to that manner. We see that we see that Leland's on session 31, ready to close the time loop. So that way it's like they're all the parts are in position. We see that Spock and Michael walk up to the chair that they're going to strap Michael in, which I don't know why they had to strap her in, because it wasn't like she was going to run away, because this was her plan. It would have made more sense to strap her in if she wasn't aware of the plan. Right. But she knew the plan, and the plan was for her to die and for it to be painful and believable. So regardless of the fact that she would have been like trying to run and escape or whatever, that would have been believable. But she also knew to stay on the platform. So it just didn't make sense for me, in my mind, for them to strap her in. Did that make sense for you?
No, and it was strange. I felt like the scene was like forced torture and like electrocution. It was just weird. Yeah. And then I was looking around the scene and I saw the arches around there was like a riser. So the chair was on top of like a riser, and there was these arches, and I'm thinking the Red Angel will be able to see a mile away that that's a trap of some sort. Like, it's not like she fell from a cliff. Like it's like it just doesn't seem natural. It doesn't seem like a place where
so moving on, they strap her in, or Spock straps her in, and then she's like, well, what if this doesn't work? And he's like, well, then you'll be another officer that I killed. And I was like, that's something a brother would say. I think that's his way of saying don't die. Right. Come back. And so then he goes back behind the safe zone, and they open up the atmosphere, and we see that Georgiou's actually worried about Michael. And again, you never know with Georgiou. Is she worried because if Michael dies, that ruins one of her plans? Or is she worried that Michael dies because she really cares about her? Because you never know. There's always an angle with Georgiou. So you don't know. We don't know why she is upset or why she looks worried. See that when they open up the atmosphere, I thought it was just no oxygen. But like Michael's burning, like her skin has lesions. I was like, oh, I just thought there was no oxygen that for her to breathe. And so she would just not be able to breathe. But that was painful. And the fact that everyone in Discovery was watching her like so close to someone else dying, like literally die in front of them. And then I was very shocked that it was Spock that stopped everyone from saving her. Because I thought it was going to be Georgiou. They're like, no, we're not going to go in there and save her. But it was Spock stopping everyone else because he blocked the door for them to go save Michael, because he knew that she wouldn't want it. Because he knew this was she had to die. It had to be believable for the Red Angel to believe it and come back. And he knew that's what Michael wanted. that was a very emotional scene because then Pike was like, go save her, go get her. It's like, well, we can't because Spock won't let us through the door. It was a very emotional scene. And then we see the Red Angel does appear. And we see that she shoots this red beam of light into Michael. And Michael comes back to life. And so Spock was right, not let them in. And then they enact the trap. And the trap it works. They bring the Red Angel down. I still can't believe who it is.
And
it's her mom.
Who says mom? Yep.
It's Michael's mother. And I guess because I was expecting it to be an older version. Because at first, when she dropped out, I thought it was just an older version of Michael. And it's her mom. And I'm very confused. Because didn't they have a body? So is this not her mother? Or is this a version? Did Michael go back and save her? Like, because when Michael was retelling how her parents died, they said the Klingons took their time with her mother. So because unless they never saw her body, I'm so confused. I really need to see that. I was so mad that the episode ended at that point because I have so many questions about how the F it is supposed to be someone who is dead.
So this is another case in which Star Trek Discovery ends the episode with the title, right? And that leaves us with another big cliffhanger. Whether it was the very beginning when they dropped in brother at the very end, and we were like, "Oh, Spock, what? How? What?" Or Project Daedalus. This is all connected to Michael. We were like, "What? Huh? How is this all connected to Michael?" And now Red Angel, mom. I'm surprised he didn't call this episode "Mom," but I guess that would have given it away.
Yeah.
But now, but who did you think the Red Angel was before this moment? Or even before this episode started?
Before we knew it was related to Michael?
Yes.
I had no idea. I thought it was going to be some random person. Because I think I stated that in a couple episodes that I hope it wasn't Michael. I hope this was not connected to her. I had no idea who it was. And I was really hoping that it was some random person. But I remember specifically saying I didn't want to connect it to Michael. I wanted someone else to be the linchpin. Was actually I'm still a little upset that it's still connected to her. I really am. I thought even finding out that her parents worked on the Red Angel, it still sort of made sense that it would like if she had kids and then like Spock had kids, they would grow up together. So maybe Spock's kids would be aware of the Red Angel and still use it to come back in time. And the only reason I started thinking it would have been Spock again, because he said he was able to like mind meld with the Red Angel. I think part of me subconsciously knew that it was going to be connected. It was going to be some version of Michael or someone connected to Michael. I just sort of hoped it would have not been. I just really did. I really hoped it wasn't going to be Michael because I just stopped.
The first time I watched this episode, so the initial run, I thought after like Ariam died, I was like, oh, I wonder if Ariam's a Red Angel.
That would have been,
because she was shot out. And like, so then I was starting to make that connection. Like, it's all about you, Michael. So I was like, oh, maybe this was like, so I started to draw these conclusions. But before Ariam, because like, really, I didn't know much about Ariam until episode 9. I was thinking, wonder it's to Terry and Michael. Like, I didn't know. So,
that's a good guess too.
So this could have gone into many directions. So we'll see, but mom is here to have been saved, possibly. I don't know. We'll see.
So I guess if the mother is the Red Angel, I feel better about that than it being a future version of Michael. But then at the same time, I would assume they would have found some remnants of her mother's body. So I just don't understand. Because her mom wasn't assumed dead. Her mom was dead. Like dead. Like they described it in a way that like it made it seem like Michael saw her parents' bodies. So
remember, Section 31, they're the experts of cover-ups. And Michael is too young to really know maybe what to look for and what to like.
But Section 31 didn't know it was her mother. Like they Leland's living with unless it was a different section of Section 31, because Leland was living with the guilt that he got them killed. So he believes that her parents are killed. Her parents are dead because Giorgio throws it back in his face. And then he even tells her, it's my fault that your mom and dad are dead. So, I mean, if you're going to admit that it's your fault that your parents are dead, why wouldn't you say your mom's still alive?
That's a good point. But they knew about the time crystal and the suit. Maybe. Yeah.
So it's like, if she is alive, where in the history is she coming from? Because she's dead. So like, it's like, is she coming? Did they grab a version of her before she got married? Okay. Because like, if she's not there in the past, it would be noticeable if she wasn't there. Does that make sense? Or that?
Yes.
So unless they're doing like the whole time thing of like, we're grabbing you from a certain point and then we'll put you right back so that way no one knows that you're gone. But it's just, I'm confused. I'm really confused with the logistics, because the way they made it seem was that Michael she heard her mother die. She heard her father die. She heard her mother die. Those screams haunted her. She heard the Klingons then sit down and have the dinner that her parents prepared for themselves.
Right.
So, and then when and she was like, so I just, the way she described it was she heard her mother die. And I feel like if the Red Angel had came back, she would have killed the Klingons.
So this also makes me wonder about her father.
Yeah, because like, I'm so confused. Oh, I'm ready to watch this next episode. It took everything not to watch the next episode before this episode. And then also, I totally skipped over the other thing. I'm so sorry about this. Is Leland dead? Because we see him like and he makes the fatal flaw. He makes the fatal flaw. It's like, we don't need any more AI taking over. And I was like, oh, you're going to die because of that. The fact that you said that line makes me think something's going to happen to you. And we see that he is having his retina scan to do something. And then we hear his voice being thrown back at him from the computer. And then like something comes out and like punctures his eye and he falls down to the ground. So we don't really know if he's dead now or if he's just like, because granted, it may not have been far enough to kill him, but just like destroy his eye. I don't know. So like Control, there still seems to be some type of AI out there or within Section 31 that killed Leland as well.
Yeah, so this takes me back to my question from last episode. Who's in control of Control? And how do they know that the data breach did not like spread? How do they know that when Control was able to connect to the headquarters of Section 31 and then to Discovery, Arium, like it was just limited there? Because they have to have shared data and it has to be a shared network. Mm-hmm. So I just thought it was, Section 31 is not as smart as they think they are.
They are not. They're not. There's so many questions. And again, I love fast-paced episodes like this. So I'm loving that we're getting answers to questions, but also more, I hate that we're getting more questions, but I love that we're getting actual answers. There's a few huge questions at the end of this episode that I just don't understand how they're going to I get how they're probably going to explain Leland's, because the AI is within Section 31. We can tell that by the fact that it killed him. But her mother, I'm very curious because she looks older. So it doesn't look like, I just really, like, she looks like she's around Sir X's age and Amanda's age. Mm-hmm. So it didn't look like they grabbed a young version of her. So,
but I like that actress. I've seen her in a few other things, including like The Wire. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, she's gonna kill this role. She's gonna kill it. She's gonna be great.
And this can also spark more conflict and drama because like Michael has an adopted mother, and like there's also another sort of kind of adopted mother. So there's Amanda, and then there's like Giorgio, and like it's
not Giorgio. So Giorgio, not new Giorgio.
No, like just Michael's like family dynamics are changing moment by moment. This is crazy. I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Me too. So final thoughts. What are your final thoughts on this episode?
Once again, this was an emotional roller coaster ride. There was a lot of like, there's a few things like I could nitpick, but you know, it's a drama. I love it. What about you?
I'm with you on this is an emotional roller coaster. This episode, again, I love Spock, his sassiness, his willingness to complete the mission. He and Michael are very similar in the stance where they will do what is needed to complete the mission. But his is more logical. Because you could see that he was worried about Michael, but he was also not worried. He did not let that emotion override his duty. Because we saw in the last episode that her duty was to push Ariam out, and she couldn't because she let her emotions override it. And it was a very vast difference of Spock not wanting his sister to die, but you know, having to make the hard decisions. Because we didn't talk about it. The security officer even still came to Michael, and Michael's like, no, you did the right thing. Like you did what, like, I'm glad you were there because you did what I couldn't do.
What a fun ride.
It was. This episode, as you can, by the length of this episode, guys, you can definitely tell that there's a lot that we had discussed because there's so much. And I still feel like we left some stuff out.
Yes.
So thank you guys for joining us. And as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Monica.
Live long and prosper.